Oh, the meeting is being live streamed. Great. Great.
Selber steril bildet sich Stelsenfluss. Bis sie sich wie schon vom Dall begegnen ist.
Vai aizmirst var strauts, no kurienes tas plūst. Mēs vienā jūrā dzīmuši un atgriezti.
We hold each other today and tomorrow. A flame of peace burns in every one of us. One rhythm resonates all over the world. The song from the heart that knows no borders.
Із чорнозему ростуть тисячі дерев. До гори піднімаються гілки.
Sakenjumwe flestes var dumma giftmålig. I allestes känns lite det med fury. We hold each other today and tomorrow. A flame of peace burns in every one of us. One rhythm resonates all over the world. The song from the heart that knows no borders. Unidos sin fronteras. Ritmo da alma. We hold each other today and tomorrow. A flame of peace burns in every one of us. One rhythm resonates all over the world. A song from the heart that knows no borders.
Welcome to Peace Day panel discussion. I'm Utaka Toyama, co-founder of Songs for World Peace. We are so glad you're here. Please note that this event is recorded and streamed live on our Facebook page.
Welcome, welcome. I'm Yoshie Nakayama, another co-founder of Songs for World Peace. During the event, we'll be posting reference links regularly in the Zoom chat box. Please check them as we move along. The links are also going to be posted in the comment section of the Facebook streaming video. The song that you just watched is our finale song 2022, produced by Songs for Peace featuring Kinema from Luxembourg. The song was originally produced by Kinema in 2020 to represent Luxembourg as an SLUP artist. Later in this event, we will interview them about the song, so please stay with us till then.
Thank you, Yoshi. Songs for World Peace is a global initiative by musicians from all over the world to create and share songs about world peace. Our mission is to bring unity through the power of songwriting and music, and to promote world peace through each artist's perspective. This year, we are representing songs from Costa Rica, Palestine, Russia, Sudan, and USA and Zimbabwe. We have released a total of over 90 songs by 100 plus artists from 80 plus countries since our launch on International Day of Peace 2020. Our mission is to release 190 plus songs from 190 plus musicians from 190 plus countries about world peace performed in their native language, basically every single countries in the world. Be sure to sign up for our mailing list for more information on what's to come.
Peace Day panel discussion is one of our annual events on September 21st in observation of the International Day of Peace. So we invite leaders from around the world who use music for social actions. This is a perfect opportunity for all of us to learn their views and how we can take actions. Through discussion and by exchanging ideas, we hope to explore what each of us can do to contribute to our society by being more inclusive and inspiring further actions for world peace. This is our third year hosting this event, and we are so grateful for the opportunity to host this panel discussion with our wonderful guests. Before we begin, please note that this is a free program by the combined efforts of people who serve social change musicians worldwide. If you believe in the power of music to make a difference and you're encouraged by what you see and hear today, we welcome your gift of any amount. The donation will be used to continue our work to organize our events and song release. Please click on the link on the comment section for details. If you could share our social media posts, that's a great help too. Thank you in advance for your help.
All right, now let's jump in. Our topic today is social action through music. Let me introduce the wonderful panel guests. As we move on, we will drop the link to the website of the organizers that they founded in the Zoom chat box, as well as the Facebook comment section. So please check them out. Now, our first guest is Laura Hassler. She's a founder and the director of Musicians Without Borders, an umbrella organization working with local musicians to bring social change and peaceful, liable condition to their own communities. Laura started the organization 20 years ago, and in that time, she has established impressive programs and training workshops in countries around the world. Laura has been recognized for her vision and leadership as the recipient of the Raya Jansvan Culture Prize and Kohong Health Prize, Joke Blom Award, and the Arabella Carter Award.
The next guest is Sebastian Ruth, founder of Community MusicWorks. Sebastian is a musician, educator, and organizer whose work explores new roles for music making in contemporary society. Community MusicWorks is a community-based organization that builds cohesive urban communities through music education and performance in Providence, Rhode Island. Since 2013, Sebastian has served as a visiting lecturer at the Yale School of Music, including developing a free online course on the Coursera platform called Music and Social Action. Sebastian was a 2010 MacArthur Fellow and had the opportunity in the same year to visit the White House to receive the National Arts and Humanities Youth Program Award from First Lady Michelle Obama on behalf of Community MusicWorks.
All right, Last but not least, Liz Stookey Sunde, co-founder and executive director of Music to Life. As the daughter of Noel Paul Stookey, who is a member of the 1960s folk trio, Peter, Paul, and Mary, Liz spent her childhood surrounded by music artists who dedicated themselves and their music to contemporary causes. And she witnessed the profound capacity of that music to transform audiences. This experience fueled her desire to become a changemaker herself. Liz and her father co-founded Music to Life as a national nonprofit to connect social change musicians with the resources needed to realize their bold vision for community change. Together with a diverse network of artists and industry leaders, Music to Life offers leadership, mentoring, and entrepreneurial training opportunities to help musicians partner in strategic and sustainable ways with organizations and communities facing persistent economic, environmental, or racial injustice.
So honored to have you all. For those of you who are watching live or in the Zoom meeting, please feel free to comment with any questions for panel guests or for Songs World Peace. We will be checking the comment section and the Zoom chat so we can address or ask them at the end. Now, without further ado, here's our first question to all of our guests. Before you connected music with social action, what was your motivation for working with music, for engaging with social action? Could you tell us how you started to connect music with social action and when that became your main career? Laura, could we start with you?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this invitation and thank you for your beautiful initiative. It's very inspiring to see young musicians producing these wonderful songs. I never moved from only being involved in music to being involved in social action. Those two threads were always the two major threads of my life. I grew up in a cooperative community outside of New York, and it was a community that was full of artists and activists. My parents were both peace activists, and we were always making music. And so I grew up making music and singing freedom songs and going to demonstrations from the age of about 8. I remember going to a demonstration when I was about that age of a young Black preacher who several years later would be giving that amazing speech in 1963 at the March on Washington, the I Have a Dream speech, where also Peter, Paul, and Mary performed. And I was also there as a 15-year-old girl. It was a life-changing thing. So those threads have always been woven together. Long ago, I moved to Europe and I came here for a job in the peace movement and went back to my music here again, built a career in music. And during the wars in the Balkans, which seemed very close, which were very close to us, had the idea that there must be musicians in that region who, just as not only I, but a large network of musicians from many different cultures that I was part of, would recognize this thread that binds us and would understand the potential of music to help to heal and to help to connect people. And that's really when Musicians Without Borders started. I was running choirs and vocal groups and running a world music school here in the city where I grew up. And gradually I just moved more into that space of working with musicians around the world in conflict and post-conflict organizations. But that's how it started, or it was always there. I would say that it was always there.
Wow. Every time we learn like what you do and how you came to where you are, who you are, it's so inspiring. I mean, thank you, Laura. Sebastian, what about you?
So again, as Laura said, thank you for organizing this and even just watching the opening song. Yeah, very inspiring to see the work you all are doing. So thank you. I guess I would answer that question by saying these were not necessarily the same threads for me. although maybe with some parallels to Laura's story, I grew up in a community that was very much, it was my parents who were in those, in the 60s, various movements in the 60s. So the values that in our community were values of activism and seeking for something more just. And my music study didn't necessarily connect to that at first, but because those were the values I was raised in, there was always a sense of how does playing music connect to broader issues in our world. And I had a wonderful teacher in high school who very much prioritized this kind of thinking. And he would have things on his wall to kind of inspire his students. One of which was a picture of the cellist in Sarajevo playing for 22 days, to honor the victims of mortar attack on a bread line. And so he was somebody who was very influential. And then it was in college that I started to say, how do these ideas come together? And I'll cite one other very inspiring influence, which was a philosopher, Maxine Greene, who was writing about the intersection of arts, education, and social change. So that's what started those wheels turning for me.
Wow, amazing. Thank you, Sebastian. Liz, what about you?
Well, there's the obvious inspiration of just having been in the house of Dad for all of my life. And so concerts and being backstage and sort of, I think, looking out at audiences, being influenced and moved by the music. But it's interesting, he did move us to Maine, and so he took us away from sort of the fray. So, similar to what you were just saying, I wasn't steeped in kind of protest and social change music the way that Peter and Mary were, who remained in New York, but I did watch Dad kind of evolve into sort of a gentler, more unifying sort of change agent, which was incredibly impactful for me. So it wasn't necessarily about tearing down, what existed, as much as it was raising something new and something that was more healing. So, and those were some of the values that I sort of witnessed in the house. And then there were these influences that came in, like We Are the World. And for those of you that may not remember that, this was a sort of a massive global, it was both a song as well as sort of a global movement to raise awareness around poverty and inequity, sort of, around the world. And I just remember, and we happened to be backstage for that, which is a whole other story. But I remember, on the one hand, being incredibly impressed by that, but on the other hand, appreciating that it was top down and short-lived. I mean, it was long for its time, given that it was a song, but it started to awaken this sense of what's more, what else can music be and do? I mean, you've got that big splashy thing, but what else can it really do and be on a sustainable level? And so then I got into working with nonprofits to help them sort of achieve their mission. I did consulting for a number of years around strategic planning and organizational development and communications. And so I realized I was most drawn to those organizations that had that kind of innovative and entrepreneurial spirit, that were willing to sort of take chances and really take some thoughtful risks about how they were doing their work to make change. And then realizing, as Dad and I started this path towards Music to Life, which we didn't even know it would be what it is now, we did some songwriting contests and realized that the music was actually still out there. We were wondering if, social change music still alive, and that artists were kind of super talented but under the radar. But then also key was they had some pretty incredible ideas for how they wanted to take their music to the street and be more meaningful and intentional and sort of build sustainable change around the issues that they cared about. And so that sort of bottom up, kind of local to global, started to kind of cement during those early days of our songwriting contests.
Wow, very inspiring. Okay, thank you so much. Now I'd like to ask the next question to Laura and Sebastian. You are musicians who work on both music and social action through community building. Musicians and community leaders require different skill sets and both take so much time and effort. You can always get better and it's endless, yet we have only 24 hours a day. Have you found it challenging to balance the work as a musician as well as a community leader? And how did you balance those, Laura?
Well, it was a process. When we started, we were just a bunch of volunteers coming in and out of a borrowed office in a peace organization. And I was still doing all of my music work and, conducting choirs and going on tours and things like that. The choirs were all animated by the same idea. So we moved together into this space. I couldn't have done it without them and without volunteers and I didn't do it alone ever. It was always about community building, both in the places where we were working, but also within our own community. And gradually, I had to let go of the musical work, the weekly preparation of rehearsals, of looking for repertoire, of arranging things, that kind of thing, just because it wasn't the same rhythm as working in an organization that was working internationally, where we were having contacts all over the world. But it happened slowly and organically. And I would also say that it wasn't that I was only doing music before and then suddenly I started organizing. I've always been organizing things. All of my choirs, I started them. The World Music School that I ran, I set it up. So I've always had these crazy ideas and had wonderful people around me who got kind of infected by those ideas and liked the idea and joined. And some of them are still involved. So it was this kind of give and take. And I would also say something else about it. There's a wonderful professor and writer in the field of peace building named John Paul Lederach. And he's written about the importance for peace builders, because that is a different profession, you could say. I mean, we all are doing that, but there are also like professional people who go around negotiating the ends of war. And he talks about the importance for peace builders to be able to think more like artists, because the process of any process of social change, and certainly the process of stopping violence and trying to build peaceful societies, is a very dynamic process, and it is one that requires a great deal of creativity. And so I kind of flipped that call for peace builders to be artists to the idea that artists can be peace builders, because we have that creativity. And for me, we're not a huge organization, but we're working in 7 or 8 different countries around the world with long-term projects together with local musicians and local organizations. And I think that a lot of the part of the organizational work that keeps me going, even though I'm not out there, doing music anymore myself, is that we're a creative organization. So all of those kind of creativity tools that I kind of learned as a musician are now coming in great service to the organizational part, and also the openness, the connection within our own organization, the care for each other, which I think our organization is very strong in. All of these ideas, but also the idea of, okay, being open to opportunity. And being able to enter in a creative way into doors that open up for you. And this was always our history. It was never a history of having a pot of money and being able to go out and choose and decide what to do. It was always a history of, okay, we have an idea, we have an end goal, and then something opens up that you never expect, and you say, hey, that might be a way. And then as long as you hold that end goal and you hold your idea, if you bring that creativity to the organizational work, to me, that continues to feed that particular need, that particular artistic need, I would say. So sorry, that's a bit long, complicated answer, but it's a complicated life.
Well, can agree more. Sometimes we just get into the administrative work and we forget we're artists, we're creating this. So that's amazing. Thank you, Laura. Sebastian.
Yeah, I think there's maybe some similarities to what Laura said. I think the work of building a community of colleagues, a community of practice, and building a community of artists is very much related, if not the same work. Certainly, I think if I were not organizing in a community, in a performance and education organization, and I were just thinking of myself as a musician, probably life would have some, my time would be spent a little bit differently. But even just to be a musician requires, organizing yourself and colleagues toward an end. So I think there's something just very clarifying that the end we're working toward has a particular mission, has a particular set of goals. We're, at the end of the day, we're putting on a concert not to sell a certain number of tickets, but to think about what gains we might make in our community through this event. Who might be coming together, who might be meeting each other, how might this musical moment be impactful or significant to the people who attend. So I think they all are artistic questions, right? They're all about, I was thinking a little while you were talking, Laura, about the need to have an imaginative vision of what could be, right? And that's artistic, and it's organizing, and it's, I guess you could say it relates to the mission of peace building.
Thank you, Sebastian. Yeah, that's all we also aim at Songs for Peace. We want to connect artists and make impact in community. Thank you. So now I'd love to ask Liz, because you have been supporting social action artists with both music and social action. What advice would you give to artists who struggle to find a good balance between those two activities?
Yeah, that's interesting. And artists who come to us are, I don't know, is there a full-time paid working artist right now? I don't know, like who just can focus on their craft. I don't know if that really exists. So I think that adds to the tension, frankly, and the stress. It's sort of, I want to keep pursuing my craft. I'm feeling moved to respond and react and sort of be a channeler for the emotions, the grief, whatever it is going on in my community. But I also need to earn a living and sort of, and maintain my livelihood and not be ostracized, or frankly, for that matter, since we're talking internationally, jailed or harmed or put my family at risk, right? So those are all the things that are sort of in front of an artist. And yet I'm going to sit here and say, who am I to say, do your art this way or that way? So, we have artists coming to us, and honestly, it's sort of, I think it's how to help facilitate their voice in the best way possible. And there are some artists who say, I'm willing to take these risks. And I think if they're going in wide open about what those risks are, I'm thinking even about some of the artists that we've, that I've met through you guys. I'm thinking about Tika in particular. I'm willing to open myself up to those risks. And that's just you have to come to that moment of truth. But I guess I don't feel like it's me. I'm a sort of a facilitator. I'm a let me help draw these artists into their best selves, such that they are able to respond in a way that has meaning to them, and in a way that will help them feel that they are making a difference. And then, for us at Music to Life, we're adding the kind of the socioeconomic piece, because, what we're saying to the artist is, if you're able to kind of step into this more of a bridge building, peacemaking space, then you and you're interested in collaborating, let's say, with a local organization to build a program that is music driven in its in its work and that it is set out to achieve a certain outcome, you necessarily will be working across difference. And because in order for a program to be acceptable or integrated into a community, you're going to need to work across difference in a way that you need to feel comfortable with if you're stepping into that. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of where I sit on that.
Thank you, Liz. I think that totally makes sense. Thank you. Let's talk about music. As Songs for World Peace, many of our artists wish to contribute their gift and talent to society, but many of our artists prefer not to be labeled as social action artists. I believe the part of the reason is that we want our art to be inclusive and don't want to take the risk of making our art or activity as exclusive by being labeled that way. Do you think music that is deeply connected with social movement has to be political or has to be called as political? And what would you say to artists who feel hesitant to be associated with such labels? Can we start with Rola?
Yeah, well, in our projects, for example, the places where we work, Kosovo, Palestine, Rwanda, Congo, El Salvador, I would say these projects are highly political in the deepest sense, and yet we never talk about politics. We never engage with politics, because where we are is we're at what we used to call in like the peace movement of community organizing, or community building at the grassroots. So what we're trying to do is to create alternatives for people who have lived through violence and war by engaging with local musicians and local needs, local problems, and like building from the ground up. Now, I've also been in that space in the late 60s and early 70s, where I had a guitar around my neck and I was singing at demonstrations, or I was leading the music for an activist campaign. And I know there are musicians around the world who choose to do that, and I admire them. I guess my answer to that is that I think that any process that's going to bring about true social change has so many levels to it and so many places where one can engage. And there's nothing wrong with people presenting their music as they see it, as they wish. You don't have to take a political, in the narrow definition, position for your music to have deep social impact. And I think, for example, of our project in Kosovo, where we're working in an ethnically divided city that has been divided since 1999, the end of the war. Literally, one group, the Serbs living on one side of the river, the Albanians on the other. And this used to be a rock and roll town, where it was like an industrial town where lots of rock and roll came out. So we've started an interethnic rock and roll school, rock school there. And we never talk about politics, because people there have grown up only ever hearing about politics and only ever hearing political labels. What we talk about is music, and we give the space where young Serb and Albanian and other ethnicities of kids can meet each other as musicians, can make that choice themselves to start relationships and friendships. And talking about politics is then way down the road, but you're building the infrastructure that gradually leads to a change in that community, because people are talking with people on the other side of the bridge. And to me, that's a deeply political action, but we don't talk about politics in the narrow sense ever, because that would jeopardize the kids, it would jeopardize the project, and it would basically kind of underscore the, I would say, incorrect definition of what politics in society is. So again, it's a bit of a complicated answer, but I think, that that there are so many different ways of working, and the important thing is to be open to all of those and see all of those different levels and look for ways in which musicians working at all of those different levels can reach out to each other and join those efforts for that long end goal.
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, I think if I'm correct, you're saying establish the humanity first, and that way we can build on top of that everything else.
Or see the question of political social action more broadly than the narrow definition of being involved with politics, with what politicians talk about. See it as human, world engaged, connected work where you're really building the new society that you would like to have, or the alternative society that you would like to have at whatever level you're working.
Thank you. How about you, Sebastian?
Yeah, I such an interesting question, and I think there's both something narrowing for a musician to claim the label that I'm a political artist or I'm a social change artist. And I believe that if you're true to the intent of artistry in our world, it's of course political. It's of course about social change. So I guess I'm with Laura in the sense that to put the label on it might be overly constraining. But I don't think anyone should hesitate. Artists should hesitate from thinking that their work is about the most, taking on the most significant issues. So that's a kind of middle. It's a sort of a tricky answer, I guess, to this good question. But this quote, I just started to look for it when Laura was speaking. This quote came to mind from Pablo Casals, who is known as a great cellist and a conductor and a composer. And in the 30s in Spain was working to establish a democratic government, and then the fascists started to take over, and he devoted his life toward freedom. And the quote is, "An artist with a conscience cannot separate him or herself from certain political issues. Chief among those are justice and freedom." And I like the way he says it, right? Because you're an artist and you have a conscience, and so there's no separating from being dedicated to these questions.
Thank you, Sebastian. That was also my favorite quote from your class. How about you, Liz?
I love that, Sebastian. Sort of that it's something you can't not do. I mean, that's what we're here. It's sort of something you can't not express. And one of the things that we do with our artists through our training is we really encourage the creation of an artistic statement. Some of the grants that these artists are applying for will ask for it anyway, but we go through this whole, and what it starts to boil down to is, what are your core sort of values that you're leading with? And they tend to, similar to, again, what Sebastian and Laura have said here, they tend to boil down to kind of basic human kind of dignity and human rights, and sort of what do we all want. And the other thing that our artists are doing is they're finding within their community the sort of shared concerns that they can address in a way that's productive and helpful. So they're looking at issues of poverty, which we can all agree across any kind of spectrum, there is poverty. They're looking at issues of sort of the environment and clean water. They're looking at issues of addiction or suicide, or sort of these kind of these challenges that exist in our communities that go beyond any kind of politics. And it was interesting, Laura, we actually, we really don't talk politics per se. We talk about And because again, we're at Music to Life, we're really encouraging these artists to step into their communities as kind of problem solvers and entrepreneurial problem solvers. We're saying sort of how do we, what are solutions we can work towards that, I think you've both said this, that help create healthier, sort of more viable, safer communities. So it's really about focusing on those kind of commonly held concerns and how we address those, which really do, they really go beyond sort of politics per se. It's about living healthy, productive lives.
Thank you, everyone.
Would it be okay if I added one more thing? I realize, I guess the flaw in my answer though, is these commitments are not automatic, right? Like artists aren't necessarily doing work for peace or for justice by the nature of just being an artist. So I want to just qualify that, right? Because I think it comes up in our work these days as we deepen, for instance, our anti-racist work in the organization. And there's one thing to say, well, of course, I don't support racist structures, but it's a very different thing to say, and which ones am I upholding by not challenging them? So it's not we don't think we get as artists an automatic ticket to contributing to good just because we're practicing artistry. There is a work, right? It doesn't mean you have to label yourself, but there is an intense work to make that commitment or those kinds of devotions.
Thank you, Sebastian. So there are many ways to use music. Songs for World Peace artists write songs for world peace because we believe that both music and world peace are a common ground. While music has the potential of connecting people and brings a positive social contribution, songs with a social message also have a risk of being a trigger of conflict. On the other hand, music with no lyrics is open to interpretation, which can be a risk of getting used for unintended causes, like when Hitler used Wagner's music. So what would you think about our responsibility as musicians and songwriters who wish to contribute our skills and gifts to build community when it still involves the risk of causing friction between people who have different perspectives? Laura, please.
Thank you. That brings up something very, very important, I think. I know that in several of the regions that we work in, including the Balkans and including Rwanda, for example, music has in the past been used as a tool to connect one group of people against another group of people. And there are many examples of that throughout history, of course. It's one of the reasons, and there comes my kind of peace activist, civil rights background into our work and our thinking about how Musicians Without Borders actually needs to kind of reflect on its own work, is that we obviously we look to three sort of founding principles. One, obviously, the connecting power of music. The second is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is sort of the kind of gold standard in the world, if you will, for what every human being, what most countries in the world have agreed should be the equally shared rights of all human beings. And the third is the principles of active nonviolence. And we look to the teachings of Dr. King, but also to other people. And we try to navigate and sort of check back on ourselves in the work that we do of, are we faithful to these three sort of guiding sets of understandings, because we also don't want to be sort of teaching people how to write songs in some place so that they can write songs vilifying some other group or anything in that direction. So we try to build into our pedagogical and didactic approaches the values that come from a respect for human rights, that come from the principles of active nonviolence, and that link the question of peace building to the question of social and economic justice and those issues. So we see ourselves really as an organization that tries to connect those things and looks to those as the best ways that we know how to make sure that we are not doing harm. This is the first principle of nonviolence, I think, as all of its proponents say, do no harm. And so I think this is, and also things like when you are in a situation of really combating some form of evil that takes place or injustice or that has taken place, to confront that evil, to confront that injustice, but not the human beings, to try to create space where people can reconnect with each other and can disassociate from the definition of the other as the enemy. So I think that would be kind of my answer to this issue. I think it's a really important one because music is so powerful. It is such a powerful way of connecting people, and we really have to be careful that in the values that stand behind us are connecting all the people that we're engaging with or that are around us.
Thank you, Laura. How about you, Sebastian?
I think there's maybe no way of totally preventing or predicting how a piece of music or a song would be used in the future. I like how you framed it, Laura, that first and foremost, you kind of embed a project in a set of shared values. But when Beethoven wrote his music, could he have anticipated how the Nazis would use it more than a century later, right? Probably not. And does that, I've had this conversation kind of as a debate with friends and colleagues, like, does the contortion of that music leave a stain on the music for the future? And I don't think so, right? I think that was a misuse, right? It's important to know those histories, though. It's important to know how a piece of music was contorted or claimed or, made into a pernicious nationalistic kind of agenda. It's important to recognize that this can happen with all kinds of works of art. So as artists, can we prevent that from happening? I'm not sure, right? But I think it maybe what it does is it raises in us, it raises the level of responsibility to be really aware of what we're furthering or promoting, or what songs we sing and what agendas they've had, and how we can be very conscious, right? What we're pushing forward into the world. And whether it's playing our own music or playing music that was written by other people, how we can be really clear what intentions we carry when we put it into the world.
Thank you, Sebastian. And you, Lise?
Yeah, what's so interesting about the work that we do is obviously we have artists that have music that is themed around various issue areas that's kind of out there. And yet the work that the artists, that we're working with, their music is a vehicle through which to facilitate a change happening in the community. So when it gets composed, and I'll use an example in Houston. So Cheryl is the mother of two formerly addicted kids, country artist, and came to us with songs just pouring out of her about the sort of the guilt and the shame of being the parent of a child that is having these struggles. And sort of we helped her channel that energy into what now is something called Hope Loves Harmony, which is a healing circle through which caregivers and parents can kind of channel their emotions through music in a sort of a healing manner. And she's now recruited a couple of caseworkers to sort of be with her. She travels to clinics. And so the music that gets made, it's just kind of an interesting twist on this. The music that gets made is sort of the community and sort of in service to the healing and the furthering of that community proper. And I'll use another example. Miles up in Maine is a rap artist, works in the Maine State Prison with a faculty member actually that goes in to teach, of all things, Holocaust studies to the people that are in prison. And he was finding as he taught this very intense subject that his students in the prison, all kinds of emotions were sort of coming up for them. And so Miles now, as his kind of sidecar, helps to sort of in a very thoughtful way sort of help the students sort of process those emotions, kind of put them into sort of original pieces of poetry or song or whatever. And so the music that comes out of that again is sort of part of the healing journey and the process. And so it's interesting that that's where we work with this music. So I don't it's just a slightly different, I don't know that there's a way to kind of, misuse that, for example, in the sense that what's happening right now, again, through this prison project, is they've now recorded these songs. They're now looking towards, now that COVID is sort of lessening, they're looking towards doing an annual kind of public sort of presentation of this kind of poetry and song. And so really kind of, again, sort of coming from within this place of healing and change out, to the community. So.
Thank you, Liz. Now, I think we heard many times from all of you about community building, and let's talk about community building. In order to create a social movement or establish, especially to work towards world peace, I think working with and through others is essential. And all of you are community builders and leaders and educators who use this music. And how do you involve or work with people who have a different view from yours? Can we start with Laura? And then I think the further question would be, because last year you talked about the music helps to creating a new identity that is tied to conflict. And I think you mentioned earlier as well, even though you're not talking about politics, music is actually giving new perspective and new identity to the people. And from your experience, what kind of music and activities and environment and attitude as a peace builder help to build a healthy community, especially when there is a conflict?
Wow, how many hours do I have? I think that for one thing, we try to respond to requests. We never go in with a kind of set idea. We go into places where most places are post-conflict regions. Some places like El Salvador, for example, are exceedingly violent, which goes back to a long period of war, and then after that, just a very culture of violence following that. But I think, what we try to do is to listen. And we understand that people who have invited us are dealing with something very difficult. In every single place that we go to, that's different. So we speak with, when we're invited, we speak with the people who've invited us, and we try to meet musicians locally. Musicians, it's not usually musicians who invite us in. In El Salvador, for example, it was the UNICEF chapter of El Salvador who were working together with their Ministry of Education to try to create ways through the schools to lessen the impact of violence on children's lives. And what we ended up doing was training about 180 school music teachers in ways of approaching children in their classes that created a feeling of safety and inclusion for those children. and working with them and listening to them, to what the needs were, what the realities were on the ground. And then together, taking some of the experiences that we've had and then formatting that to fit, plus their input to fit that situation. And what that now has become is a team of Salvadoran trainers who are rolling this out across the country. And this is not a question of teaching children how to play a violin. This is a question of knowing how to go into a classroom where you have no money for instruments and everybody's poor, and kids are coming from sometimes situations of domestic violence, living in surroundings of gang violence. How do you create that space in that room with music where children feel safe and included and honored, where their creativity can be invited? And that business about, the politics and the identity is, I think, in any situation where there has been or is or continues to be an abusive political situation, history, violence, war, etc., or people have become refugees, people on the move, what you find is that people get reduced to that single bit of their identity, which comes out of that suffering. So if you live in Mitrovica in Kosovo, you are only a Serb or you are only an Albanian. You're not also a talented woodworker, a wonderful mom, and I think that what that music is, what we hope to do in working with music with people, is to open up the access to the complex identity that should be every human being's possession, and to go beyond that single identity of being a victim or being a refugee or being a Muslim or a Christian or whatever it is that has defined that. So that's what I meant by that. And the question of going into places that have been marked by conflict, the first thing is to listen and to be humble and to understand that you don't know nearly as much as those people about what the problems are. You just have some tools that you can share, and then use those tools together to help to address whatever aspect of that issue is that people would like you to help address.
Thank you, Laura. How about you, Sebastian?
Yeah. I want to talk, I guess, in response to this question, I want to talk about our teen program at Community MusicWorks called Phase 2. And I hope this makes sense why my mind goes to this program. Many years ago, when we were trying to figure out how to deepen the work of music learning and community building, especially for our teenagers, we realized that all of the activities had to come out of, first and foremost, a sense of a supportive group. And that had to take place by primarily creating a social space and a space where people shared food and got to hang out informally. And so what it has become over the years is every Friday night, a group of about 20 teenagers comes together for an hour of music making together, a wonderful home-cooked meal by a local chef, and an hour of discussion that, like, the short way of describing the discussion is it's discussion about social justice issues that they face in their lives and their communities. But it's really, that's too simplistic, because it's really discussion about what's on their minds, right? What are they encountering? And then at the end of the year, they put on a performance called the Youth Salon. It's an annual event, and they decide what it's going to be. And it's usually some mix of conversation that they facilitate with the audience and some music and also a meal. But I think the bigger outcome from this work over the years is that they develop a skill set of being in a group that values other people. And that, where the primary value I think they understand, especially a ninth grader comes to the group and doesn't know what it is, that people are really there with curiosity about one another. And there's nothing that difficult about this idea, but creating a space where people can come with their full selves, it requires time, it requires consistency, it requires food. In our case, it requires music making. But I think the thing that becomes profound out of that is the feeling of how do you participate and how do you show up? So that comes to mind from this question.
Thank you, Sebastian. Yes, good music and food, nothing can beat that. Okay, how about you, Liz?
Oh, I so appreciate that, Sebastian. Yeah, and I have several thoughts on that. When we surveyed artists to ask them what they felt like they needed from us if we were going to support their social change work, they said three things. One was we need funding for our work because we have this really incredible idea and we want to go into our community and do good things. We need skill building because we don't know exactly how to kind of put it all together or whatever. And we need community. We need to be surrounded by like-minded artists because it's really lonely and it's really hard to do this work because it really is a subset of musicians. I think you were saying that before, Sebastian. It's not like everybody's just like, oh, I'm a musician, I'm a creative, therefore I am a change maker. So it really is a select group of artists that that feel this calling. And I between you and Laura, I wrote down all these things, but I just I think listening is huge. We really, when we work with artists, particularly around this notion of community. And there is this, this is a humble group, creatives, it can be very humble and very sensitive and sort of, who am I to be a change maker? Who am I to go into this community and, sort of be some kind of beacon or some kind of solution? So we really helping them understand that in this scenario, they are not solopreneurs. It's a term that I love because I think a lot of these artists, because they're so DIY, we work with a lot of singer-songwriters who are, contemporary musicians. They're out there gigging, they're out there kind of trying to get themselves heard. And it's like, no, this is actually a situation where collaboration is key because first of all, you're not going to have all the answers. You might have this heart movement around the homeless or around violence in your community or whatever, but you cannot be effective around this alone. So sort of helping them understand sort of the circles around this issue in their own community, others that are doing this, other organizations, and that they can kind of lean into their peers around this, that this is a collaborative, it's a collaborative effort in that sense too. So that can help reduce the overwhelm when it comes to kind of what might I step into. But I wanted to mention, because Laura, and I can't remember exactly what you said, but there is a group, just a incredibly brave. It does take bravery. It does take a little bit of courage and some bravery and some kind of dipping your toes out there. And I just, there is a group called the Black String Triage Ensemble out of Minneapolis, and they're sort of unbelievable. Leader is a violinist, cellist, David Hallman. And what they do is he recruits Black and brown, mostly string players, to be a crisis response team, to be some of musical first responders to scenes of violence in his community. And it's literally like he's on a police phone, like he hears about incidents and he likes to be there within the first half hour of when this incident has happened. He just started doing that out of this, just like, I got to be there. I got to bring music into a situation to create an immediate sense of like, calm and connection, whatever. And it's now, it's kind of steadily growing, but he's just one of those, we've worked together a little bit and he's just one of those folks that's just doing all of that, sort of feeling the calling of his community, taking that brave little step and recognizing that he's not alone, in doing this. So.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz.
Oh, yes. Can I add something? I think both all of you guys mentioned that about the importance of the listening, and as an educator, I think what you guys said was really inspiring, because not teacher being like, oh, I'm a leader, I will tell you what to do, this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing, but rather than that, you all let other people have their voice as equal to yours as well, and then respecting each other, and that's creating a safe space for the artists to share their views. Thank you very much. Sorry, Yoshi.
Thank you, everyone. So this is the last question to the panels. What does world peace mean to you? Laura.
Well, I guess if who was it that said, was it Dr. King or maybe Cornel West at some point recently, that peace is not only the absence of war and violence, it is the presence of justice. And to me, I don't think we can ever separate those things. I think that that if we look at the world today and all of the conflicts going on around, and also the inequalities, that these have to do with the unjust distribution of resources, unjust control of resources around the world, the military and political systems that keep that in place. And so I think it's important that also the question of peace building or conflict resolution, it's, you know, these are not questions of only getting people to agree not to shoot each other anymore on the battlefield. That because the source of conflict is always closer to the ground, and it's about people's lives. So to me, world peace starts at the ground level. You need those other levels as well. And I think that for me, that's kind of been the theme of what I've taken out of this conversation. Very inspiring stories from both Liz and Sebastian about their work. And I see we're all working in very different ways. And it's good to acknowledge the complexity of what peace can mean. And I also think in this period of a great deal of turmoil in the world, and I would just also mention that is not recent. That that is not recent. There are so many wars, and if we remember back to the Vietnam War, and that when I grew up, when in all of these global wars, it's not a recent thing that there is war, and it's not a recent thing that there is injustice, and it's also not a recent thing that there are people working all over the world for alternatives. And what I think is a pretty recent thing is that there are so many artists engaged in this, because there are so many artists who recognize that art is not a product. It can be, you talk about people having careers and having to earn a living and so forth. Yes, of course, it is a skill, it is a craft. But to me, art, the two most important functions of art are to connect people and to reflect, to tell the truth at whatever space you are, to tell the truth, to find the truth, to search for the truth, and also to understand that the truth is also something that is in flux. But to look for that truth and look for those connections. And so to me, that's how I see peace. And I sort of look for the small, to me, International Peace Day, to me, the great gift is now having heard the stories from Liz and Sebastian, because now I've learned something about two threads of world peace that I didn't know anything about before. And I think when we start to understand that these are all over the world, they're not in the daily headlines, but there are people like us, like you all, like Songs of World Peace, like all of these initiatives all over the world, doing the slow, quiet, sometimes noisy, and in this case, always musical work for peace every single day at every level.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
How about you, Sebastian?
I would love to hear everybody on this call give an answer to that question. And I don't know where you all sit, what part of the world you're all in. It's very inspiring to see all your faces. So hopefully that can happen too. I guess my short answer to this is, as Laura said, war is not new. Quest for justice and peace is not new. Maybe peace is about awareness and consciousness, because it doesn't manifest only when people start shooting each other, right? It's like you have a conflict with your friend or your neighbor, and you're not going to pull, it's not going to become violent, but how do we as individuals become conscious of what conflict is and how it can be something we can creatively move through and recognize the humanity in others? Like that's individual work, and the people with whom we share space or identity, or we share space and then there's just that one layer of identity that is different, whether it be religion or ancestry or something. There's so many reasons that human beings have conflict with one another. I think peace is about awareness and consciousness of ourselves, our response to difference. And it's an ongoing project about understanding how we can recognize the humanity in ourselves and others.
Thank you. How about you, Liz?
So true, both of you. I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh that said peace is every step or something like that. And I think there's, because it's overwhelming, frankly, to consider world peace. I mean, it's as hopeful a sentence or two I could string together. It's also just like, oh my gosh, are we ever going to get there? And so I think, what I'm hearing both of you say is this notion that peace really is every step. Peace is every day. Because what can you truly control? What do you really have the ability to impact? And because if you get overwhelmed, I mean, I have stopped watching daily news. And I think part of what I try to guide myself through my days with is this idea that, I think you just said this, Sebastian. I'm in the grocery line, or I am in traffic, and how can I be a peaceful presence in my daily moments? How can I bring a sense of peace and sort of share that with whoever I come into contact with? How can I be that way? And how can I, as part of that work, facilitate my own sense of being a good person in the world, so that I can have that be a positive force for others.
Right. Thank you, Liz. By knowing artists from around the world and working with them sometimes makes me wonder, why can't we just coexist? And because every time when I visit their home country and then meet their parents, all of the parents just want best for their children. And that makes me just keep wondering, why can't we do that to one another? But thank you so much. Okay, it's been so inspiring, and we would love to continue this discussion. But we might have received some comments and questions from our artist. And so let's move on to Q&A. And our Songs for World Peace artist, please comment or ask a question. This is your golden time to ask questions. These three legendary members, we won't get to see them often. So please ask them. All right. So let me introduce one of our team members, Hannah, to share questions that we may have received. Hi, Hannah.
Hi. So yeah, we have yet to receive any questions per se, but we've had some, I don't know, some comments, some statements from some of our participants. One that I received is I got it when we were talking about, political messages in the music and how, intention separating politics from art. And the one I received was from El Architect. And just to read out what was written to me. Art in its nature is provocative, hence why I believe it is not easy to separate the art from the political. With regards to misuse and the possibility of limiting that, the only way I see this being realized is by openly wording our thoughts, ideals, and beliefs as artists to accompany our art. That's a very interesting perspective. Thank you for your input. And yeah, I think about this a lot as well. I don't know if there are any other questions that people want to send over or things you want to discuss.
Yeah, if there is anything, you can raise your hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it possible to just hear where everyone is? Could we just have everyone introduce themselves? Is that okay?
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, let's begin with El Architect, the artist who commented the comment.
Hello, and thank you everyone for having me here. My name is El Architect, or my artist name. I currently am residing in Boston, originally from Palestine.
Oh no, you're frozen.
Shall we come back to him later? Oh
yeah.
I think he's
okay, you're back. You
Hello.
got frozen after you said you're from Palestine and you're in Boston.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm from Palestine. Name is El Architect. I'm a music producer, engineer, rapper at my own time. This is kind of like the type of art that I like to make and do. And that's pretty much it. I'm in Boston right now, so I live in Boston, originally from Palestine.
Thank you. What about you? Same one. I'm also in Boston. You're in Boston too, Nicole.
Yes, hi, my name is Nicole Kwan, and I'm also in Boston. And I'm representing Costa Rica. That's where my dad is from. But yeah, we all went to Berkeley. So yeah, local.
So in regards of Berkeley, how about you, Anna Halova? Where are you?
Hi, my artist name is Hallower. My actual name is Anna. I live in Los Angeles, so it's very early right now. But I'm from Russia, originally from Siberia. So yeah, that's it.
Thanks for joining us. So we are introducing Nicole, Halova, El Architect, and Vera. So they are this year's artists. So we are introducing their song and we'll be interviewing them later soon. And for Berkeley connection, let's go to Karis. Where are you? You're muted.
Hi, thank you. I am based in Milan. I'm a Maltese Italian artist, but I represent Malta in Science for World Peace.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. And for this year's artist, Vera, where are you? Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vera. I am a singer, songwriter, and activist from Zimbabwe in Africa.
So Vera, Liz connected us to Vera. So thank you, Liz. Thank you, Vera. Okay, so last but least, Achal representing Kinema from Luxembourg. Are you in Luxembourg, you guys?
Hello.
Hey.
Yes, we are in Luxembourg. It's so cool to meet you all. It's so cool. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Steve, and all of your beautiful thoughts and really cool. Really cool.
Inspiring talks also. Thank you so much.
Amazing. So the song that we played at the beginning of the event was originally produced by Kinema, a child's organization, to represent 2 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you.
So shall we move on?
Yes, let's move on. And maybe we can ask their peace quote, what does world peace mean to them, as we move along with the interview.
Awesome. Yeah, let's do that.
Yes.
So yeah, go ahead, Antheko.
Okay, so now we hope you can stay a bit longer, but if your time doesn't allow, please, thank you so much. Before we move on, please click on the links in the Facebook comment section or the Zoom chat box for the quick survey. We would love to hear from you about your experience today, and especially from the artist. And please let us know any topics you really like to learn or discuss in our future programs. And we plan to continue this initiative, and we'd like to be as helpful as possible to all of you. And we would like to humbly remind you that we are going to continue to offer these events for free through the combined effort of SWP management team as well as all of our artists. And please consider a gift of any amount to keep these programs available and to aspiring social change musicians around the world.
So another huge thank you to these inspiring panel guests for joining us today once again. So don't forget to follow our social media and their organizations too. So you can donate all of the organizations. And then get yourself informed. For our artists, please mark your calendar for Saturday, October 8th, which is in 2 weeks, a little bit over 2 weeks. So we will have a fun event for us. So now let me pass the microphone to our team member, Stella. Hey, Stella. You're muted.
I know. Okay, thank you, Shay. It's such a joyful day to celebrate the new peace songs and actually be with the artists and panel guests to get to know them better. Hi, I am Stella, an associate manager at Songs for World Peace. Welcome to the live stream. Yay. And then please leave comments where you are watching and say hi to each other and for any questions if you have any. So here we invited 2022 peace artists who submitted their original songs about world peace, and we'll honorably listen to the songs together, interview the artists, asking how they came up with this music and then other questions we may have. So let's get started. We have 6 new songs submitted this year. Songs for World Peace produced the finalist song 2022 featuring the artist Kinema, as Yusha said, representing Luxembourg. So now we are going to start with the Nicole Kwan, who represents Costa Rica. So just a quick note that we'll be playing a snip of the song for each artist who is here today. Please visit our website, songsofworldpeace.org, to enjoy the songs in full. So our first song is written in Spanish. The song title is Singing Soul in English translation. So Yusha will play the video.
Están maduros y en las casas
Wow. So happy vibe. I love the drawings, especially in the music video. It's just so cute. Did you draw?
Sorry?
Did you draw that, Nicole? Did you?
Yeah. I drew all of the parts, and then those are videotapes. They're actually from Boston. I wish they were from CR, but I couldn't go there. I couldn't fly there and take them.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. So this is a question. So could you tell us more about your song? What was the inspiration to compose the song and join the initiative for World Peace?
Sure. So, well, the inspiration for the song is that originally, oh, actually, can you see me? Okay, cool. So, I originally wrote it for my my cousin, actually. So my dad's sister, he was just born this past June, and they named him after me, and which is an incredibly great honor. And so I wanted to write a song for him for with an impression that I wanted it for it to last, and then I wanted it to be positive and something that he could carry with him every day. And he's a baby, so I wanted it to also be simple. And I mean, the only thing that I wish for him is that I want him to be happy, and I want him to see the reasons to enjoy what is around him. And as for why I wanted to join this initiative for world peace, well, I wanted mostly to have the opportunity to learn about other cultures and the way that other people perceive music. And it's a way, like one of my favorite things about Berkeley, for example, is that it's 50% international. And so you gain a lot of perspectives that you wouldn't otherwise be able to gain just by going to if you just go to work and have a similar routine. So it's a way to be able to branch out. Something I noticed is that like a lot of disparities that we have with each other comes from the root of fear of the unknown. And it's a lot easier to assume things about someone when we distance ourselves. So learning and even just being willing to learn is a great way to be able to bridge that gap. In another way, it's also a somewhat selfish goal of mine because simply because I do love learning about other types of art, and that in itself fascinates me. And like even if we were in a timeline in which world peace was already achieved, I would still want to learn about how others create music and how they perceive it. And I hope that that curiosity that I have and the joy that I have, I want to encourage it and share that with others.
Thank you for the answers. Learning a lot from already from the artist. My second question would be, so in general, I didn't know that you had an impression and purpose for, to write the song for him. But when I heard the music first, your lyrics are very happy and bright, and I loved it. So what I observed, though, your perspective toward them and your surroundings reinforce the happiness and peace around you. So would you tell us how you keep a peaceful and positive perspective and singing souls every day?
So I actually, in the end of the music video, I wrote a bit of my initiative. So even though this was originally written for Nicholas, it's also, I wanted to use this song because it reflects a lot of the ideas I have about world peace. And as you can tell, my lyrics are very illustrative. They're very slice of life. So the lyrics that we just heard just now, in la mañana, it's in the morning when I wake up, I smell the guarias moradas, which are the national flower of Costa Rica. The plantains are ripe, and in the streets I hear tunes. So it's very just recognizing beauty. It's a very cheerful outlook, but I deeply believe that simple acts of recognizing that beauty every day is important, because that's actually, I would say, my definition of world peace is practicing it every day, because I think that positive perspective that we can share with others, it comes from within our core values and having that basic humanity. So if when we recognize joy, we develop our ability to see that beauty in things that are unfamiliar to us. And when we spend time with others, we learn about their new perspectives and then develop that ability to imagine the world complexly as well. And when we live with joy in our own souls, we will naturally, unintentionally share that joy just in our actions. And so I mean, it's a very simple thing, and it's not extremely political. I mean, I resonate really deeply with something that Laura said about how we establish the humanity first. And I kind of and I feel that with the way that we can achieve it is just through the simple acts of being able to see how others see things, how beauty is perceived in other ways. And even the title of the song is Alma Cantarina, and that's the repeated phrase that occurs throughout the song. It's more poetically translated as a soul full of song. But I mean, I could have just said a soul full of words, but somehow music, it reaches our humanity in ways that only words cannot. And in a way, it's a testament to the impact of music and art in general, because I think we can use that as a vehicle through which we can reach others and their humanity. So, and I think if we can reach out to people on a fundamental level, it's the first step to making that change.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Everything about our perspective, and it really matters, and it really makes difference. So thank you for your answers. All right, let's go to the next artist. Let's see. Sorry about that. El Architect. We are gonna listen to an architect who represents Palestine. So it's called Noam. Is it right?
واحنا منين بيجينا النوم صاحيين والعين تحرس الجفون بينا عليه نضوي عطول تعلمنا كيف نحبس الدموع عم تتحرك المجرة واحنا بأول المشوار.
Wow, wonderful. It was very interesting music video. And thank you, Elle, for the wonderful music. Would you tell us about how you came up with the song and your thoughts and feelings and motivations behind the song? And as a following question, sorry, could you tell us why you joined the initiative in the first place? Thank you.
Definitely. So as a start, like this song is well, it's quite the opposite of what Nicole's song kind of represents. Nicole has like a very happy, cheerful song, like very, very positive song. Unfortunately, this song is not very, very positive. However, I have like I don't think it's a big problem, or it's a wrong thing to have like some realistic, I don't want to even say negative, but some realistic approach to what peace is right now, and what do we live in right now. This song is about sleeplessness and anxiety, and as a Palestinian, this is something I've like lived with for years of my life, just by kind of like being an occupied country, and kind of like not necessarily like a very intense war zone, but some sort of a war zone. But sleeplessness and anxiety is something that pretty much so many people can relate to in so many ways. And hence why also this song came about. It talks about these times where we're extremely vulnerable, where we're extremely alone. This time of the night where you're sleeping by yourself, you're alone, you're within your thoughts. If you're not sleeping, you're thinking of things, and that's all happening in your head. And all of these things kind of gave me some sort of like a push to, instead of preaching or stating what I think of peace and love and all of that, I'll just convey an image or a picture or something that's already happening, and have people kind of look at it just subjectively from a point where like, okay, this is happening and he's talking about it. It's not in any way me preaching towards any better anything or any of that. It's just merely me projecting and reflecting on what is happening in our lives. And I feel like this is, even though it's a little passive way of actually kind of like having people realize what peace and what all of these things are, but pretty effective, because it allows the person to look within themselves as opposed to actually hearing a message of change or whatever, you know. It's like I when I thought about it, I didn't think that I am in a position where I could be preachy or anything. So my substitute to that was to convey a picture that is happening and have the person look within themselves and see what they can come up with.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, it really interesting because I literally felt what you said just in the music video. So that really leads to the second question. Yeah, your music video articulates and captures very sophisticated emotions very well. So I was wondering, like, whose idea was that? And is there any meaning in the red color in general as the video?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Okay, so in general, the video, the idea for the video was the idea of my partner, Yara Awad, an amazing systems engineer and artist. She paints, she does lots of things, lots of visual arts and stuff like that. Her idea of the video and why it was actually kind of like played backwards, if you've noticed, it doesn't go forward in time, it actually goes backwards. It starts from the future and goes back to the past, or starts from the present and goes back to the past of what was happening. The whole idea of that video was, in her opinion, and kind of I so much agree with her to that point, that red could actually convey the like red is a color that conveys complexities, like worries, not being extremely like clear about things, you know. So these are the thoughts that we had when we were creating the video, and generally the thought behind the red color. It perfectly describes sleeplessness. I really think that, like, when you're at night, and when you're just between you and yourselves and your thoughts, and that like very vulnerable place, I really think the red actually kind of conveys that very well. And the backwardness of the video says that, like, just kind of like some sort of a subliminal message to actually instigate the feeling of it's not dangerous, or it's not scary to actually look in the past and learn from what we do. So it's always nice to actually kind of look back and see what we did. So that was the idea of the video and the red color. Again, Yara Awad, an amazing artist. She was like the brain behind this video, and many other videos that I do. And she always has these like amazing, crazy ideas that I always go for. Like, this is
that is brilliant. Yeah, it is brilliant. Like, it really captures all the, you know, answers, like thoughts and feelings that I can feel, like, literally when I, you know, watch the music videos. It was brilliant. Thank you so much. Before we go to the Russia, the Hallover, I want to mention something, that you can find the lyrics and English translation under the description on our YouTube video. So if you want to know the meaning behind the lyrics, you can definitely go and check it. And then you also can visit our website to, you know, see the artist piece quote. So just yeah, feel free to visit anytime you want to, you know, get to know them better. All right, now we are meeting our next piece artist, Hallover, who represents Russia. So the song title is How Many Times in English translation. So let's listen to the music now.
И небо надо мною чистое, и солнце надо мною яркое, и сердце мое не тяжелое, здесь нет войны. Сколько еще крови, сколько еще боли нужно, чтобы проснуться. забывая лица, забывая, сколько еще нужно. Мне вчера снился сон.
Wow, Oliver, thanks for the music. It was very, very powerful. Your voice also very powerful. How would you tell us about your inspiration you had for this song as you're writing and joining the initiative?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. When the war started, right, with Russia and Ukraine, I heard it when I was in the car going home, and I did not expect it to happen. It was very unexpected, very shocking to me. So I had a lot of emotions bottled in, because when I talk to my side, right, to my country, people have one opinion. Then I live here in Los Angeles. I've been here for a very long time, so the opinions are also different. So I felt like no matter what I say, it would be wrong. So I just kind of kept it inside. And this song, when I was asked to write a song for this, I was kind of worried because, well, first I've never really written a song in Russian, so it was new to me. And the second, I've never written a song about such a sensitive topic, so I didn't really know how to put it in the words, everything that was going on. And then it just came to me, like, it was really strange. It took me maybe an hour or two. It just came to me right away. The lyrics, the chorus, I heard this. I usually never do folk, or especially like Russian folk. And that chorus came to me in that style because I wanted to sing it in that old type of Russian way, and the harmonies and all of that. So yeah, well, the inspiration was, of course, the war and my feelings about it. So I'm in the lyrics, I'm asking how much more do you need to actually see what's happening, to see how much suffering is happening, to see people as people, to be empathetic to other people, no matter where you are, right? We still have to treat each other with respect, right? Because we're all people, we all have similar emotions, we're going through similar things. So that's what I thought that was missing. Whenever I talk to people, they would treat it more as, oh, it's just politics. Don't get involved into it. It's gonna pass. But actually, there are real people going through this. So that was the main inspiration, just to see people as people and care about each other, no matter where you're from. So yeah, that's the inspiration.
Thank you. So just to share your personal things with us. It is difficult topic, but I really appreciate you really express them through the music. And it leads to the following question then. What message do you want to convey to the listeners through this song?
Yeah, so as I said, I guess I'm trying to say that we should care about each other more, that we should listen to each other, and I guess just to value humans' life. No matter what your leaders or your politicians are doing, you should first of all think about other people and how they're gonna feel, because we're all the same. We're all going through the same things. So yeah, just care about each other, no matter where you're from.
Yes, I agree. Totally agree with you. Thank you, Halover. Yeah, let's go to the next song.
Before that, let's Caris, you need to, yeah.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I have to leave, unfortunately. However, even though it's been so quick for me, but I have to leave. Hopefully I'll see you again very soon. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have a Greg today? No, we don't have it, right? We don't have Greg? No, okay, no problem. Our Vera, okay. Awesome. So our next piece artist, Vera, who represents Zimbabwe. The title of the song is Say. Vera, is it correct? Okay, perfect. In Shona language. So let's listen.
It's okay. song it should crack to better. It's driving me insane, treating me inhumane. Is this how my life should go? You're making this a strain. You're putting me in chains to get off at the end of the road. It's driving me insane. Is this how my life should go? You're making this a strain. You're putting me in chains to get off at the end of the road.
Wow, Vera, I like the rhythm. And then that was just inspirational. How did you know about this initiative, and then why did you decided to submit a song for World Peace?
So I heard about this initiative from Liz. I was doing another program with her. I was currently actually doing a program with the American Embassy in Zimbabwe, and then they asked us to do something with Music to Live. And then she then referred me for this project, which was really amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I think this is probably one of the biggest things that I've done in my music career. So it's such an honor to just be a part of this and to meet so many amazing artists in the process.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. The lyrics, when I saw the English translation, that was very authentic and genuine to me. So would you tell us more about the meaning behind the lyrics?
Okay, so I don't know if any of you are like aware of the situation in Zimbabwe, but one of the biggest things in Zimbabwe is that there's, we had a president for 40 years and he was pretty much the only president I knew my whole life. And that only recently changed. And for me, the song is just about, when you're just at a point of frustration where things just aren't working out, but like in my country, if you complain, it's seen as like an act of, you're speaking against the government, but it's not necessarily the case. And a few years back, we actually had, a pastor who had a video where he was just like, I should be allowed to air my frustrations if things aren't working out well, and there shouldn't be repercussions for that. Like, it's my right to say, I can't afford to pay school fees for my kids, or I can't afford to pay rent, or I can't afford to put fuel in my car. These are just basic rights that people have. And yes, we're trying to advocate for a world where there's peace, but also we need to also advocate for a space or a world where it's okay to be upset about something and to air out your frustrations without having these repercussions. There should be freedom after speech. And that's pretty much what the song is about. It's just being able to just say, I'm mad, I'm upset, and it's okay that I'm mad. It's okay that I'm upset. It doesn't mean that I'm fighting you. It doesn't mean that I'm angry with you. It's just me being okay to be in a space where I can express myself really.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. I am just sometimes just speechless when I just agree with everything. So thank you for sharing. All right. Now, last but not the least, we have Kinema, who originally wrote our finalist song 2022, which was played at the beginning of the event. So for the audience information, Kinema represented Luxembourg, and they wrote the original song 2020 to participate in Songs for World Peace. So this year, Utako and Yoshi reproduced their song as our final music of the year to celebrate the new songs and the International Day of Peace. So Achel and Gil, sorry.
Hello, and Jérôme.
How are you?
Kinema.
Yeah.
Like you.
Thanks for joining. Could you tell us how you guys came up with the song and the original video in 2020 to join the initiative for the World Peace? What was the background and motivation behind it?
I think the first motivation was that Utako contacted us, and we were so happy to hear of this project. First of all, it's such a cool thing. I mean, we knew also it's a lot of work, and we were so happy to be chosen for Luxembourg. And I remember very clearly in 2020 where I called Jill and I was like, I'm coming to your house with amazing news. And came this out, and then I told them we need to write a song about peace and represent Luxembourg in this beautiful project of Songs for World Peace. And we are people who, once we have things in our mind, any idea, we just go for it. Like not 1%, not 100, we go 1,000%. Yes. Well, we try. And we just brainstorm so much. So basically, with Gilles for writing the song, and then with Jérôme, who initiated the entire storyboard. So it was a back and forth of ideas. And initially, we did not. The first idea which we had actually exploded the budget. And then we realized we don't have budgets. And plus it was 2020. And COVID, right? COVID, right. So it was a hard year to accomplish this project, but we managed to get through it. And we found different ways to do the work ourselves or have friends who helped us. And if you watch the first video, we mobilized 66 people during COVID, which was very hard, and we were also strict with
respecting the rules. Yes,
respecting all the rules with the masks, with the 2 meters, or any And
also for the lyrics, we used metaphors because we think that everyone understands metaphors. It's a universal language. So in the first verse, we talk about the rivers that come from the same rain and goes back to the same sea. And then in the second verse, it's the tree. The branches, they grow apart, but they come from the same soil and they are lit by the same sun. So we thought with these lyrics, everyone will understand it.
Understand it, feel connected,
Wow, awesome. First of all, I love your persistence and energy. Really, that attitude really, we can go through anything. And then during the COVID, especially, you guys really made it. Like that's victory, that's a successful story. So I'm glad we have you, and then we, kind of reproduce your song for our finalists, Music 2022. My following question would be, in a specific, I really love the lyrics, especially one rhythm resonates all over the world, along with the heartbeat that musicians show their heartbeat in the music video with the beautiful smiley face. How would you like to share with us the story behind your original music video from 2020 in specific more? Like, and how did you come up with the ideas, like the heartbeat?
How did we come up with the heartbeat?
Wow, that was a long time ago. Actually, the heartbeat part, I think we were thinking about, okay, what can we actually do, like as a movement that kind of makes sense, and that everyone could actually, when they see it, that feels like a calling to them, like, hey, I could be part of it. Like it's basically like a heartbeat. We all have a heartbeat. We are all the same, right? So it was kind of like this, and plus based on the music itself that you wrote, because like initially when they wrote the song, I wasn't there. So I heard the song at the end. I was like, okay, what can we actually do, like with that melody, with that rhythm that was already composed, and for me, like the way it sounded just reminded me of a heartbeat, and I was like, okay, let's do this movement because we're all part of it, and it just kind of makes sense, and visually it would completely make sense.
We wanted to have many people on the screen, and so we have to think about what do we have all in common, and organically we came to this idea of the heartbeat because we all have a heart.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love the idea. And then you made it really, really successfully. Really resonate with, I believe that it will resonate with everyone because we all have a heartbeat. So thank you.
But also to say thank you to the new artists, because we were moved, I was moved to tears.
Yeah, me too.
Yes,
it's crazy.
To see all the languages. So thank you so much for the artists who did this new version, because for us it's beautiful.
Absolutely, you took the song to a new level, you put new faces on it, new voices, and wow, thank you so much, Songs for World Peace. Thank you to the artists, and this is just the beginning, so hell yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for making your time for the interview and for joining us with your wonderful music. And thank you to all audiences now all around the world for joining us. Please follow our artists and please support them in social media and then just in a various ways. So yeah, let me pass to Hannah for just make a quick announcement. I know that you should made it, but maybe we can remind them again.
Yeah, it's such a quick announcement because we've already spent so much time together, but I've loved every minute of it. But I don't know, I just feel like what we as Songs for World Peace kind of strive for is to create a community and a safe kind of supportive environment as well, where we can like this inspire and support each other in our own musical endeavors, activist endeavors as well. And we just think it would be a lovely idea just for us to just get to know each other in a very casual, not kind of like a panel event, although these are very fun and informative as well, just a casual speed friending event to make friends with each other. I hope you guys can make it. I think it would be really fun, and we'll be releasing more info on that very soon, and that's going to be on October 8th. So yeah, stay tuned for information on that, and we can promise a really good time. Yeah.
Thank you, Hannah. So before we close the event, this is a message from Sebastian. Let me just scroll up. He just said, thank you so much for this event. And then can you convey my thanks to your colleagues and then the artist? Yeah, that he wanted to hear everything, but he just needed to go. But this event gonna be on our archive on the YouTube, and also as well as the Facebook event page. So we're gonna be keep promoting this. So thank you so much for you guys and to joining today. And I hope this was great opportunity for all of us to think about world peace. And then yeah, happy International Day of Peace. I hope to see you next time as well. Yushie, do you want to close?
Yeah, so I also want to share a message from Liz. So she says, wonderful to be part of the panel today. I was able to stay on and listen to the artists share their stories for a moment as well. So inspiring and makes me appreciate your work even more. So yeah, thank you so much. So now let's close the event with this year's song by Russia representing Sudan. So thank you for watching and happy International Day of Peace. Here it comes.
السلام في العالم ده حلم بعيد السلام في العالم ده حلم بعيد إلا ناس العالم يبدو من جديد إلا ناس العالم يبدو من جديد ما تحلموا بالسلام طول ما النفوس عايشة في الظلام ما تحلموا بالنعيم من بعد الجحيم ما في غير هشيم ما تحلموا بالعدالة ولسه في النفوس أنانية وندالة إلا ناس العالم نبدأ من جديد والنفوس دي تسمو في بعد جديد
you guys. Happy International Day of Peace.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
you.